Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. I'm here with the Challenger SRT Demon. This is a milestone car, not to be confused with the Fast and Furious version of this car, which is a purple star and is a little bit different. So, with the help of the Mysterious Stranger account, I'm going to go ahead and go through the Stage 6 effects of this car. This way you have an idea what individual Stage 6 upgrades may do for you. Now, this car has the advantage of being a Dodge, which means fusions can be acquired by stripping Dodge Viper GTS from the dealership. And over time, you should be able to ultimately fill out all fusion slots, including the Epics. Again, the Viper is not cheap. It's about $450,000 or $440,000 in-game money per Viper. And each only gives you about 5 or 6 fusions at best. So keep that in mind. You're filling out 128 fusions over time. That being said, because Dodge is used in some of the showdowns and other events, we've been getting a lot of crates for it recently, so fusions may be more plentiful than you think. So at stage 5 only, let's go ahead and take a look where the baseline puts us. The baseline dyno will be used to compare later on to all the other times to get a feel for how much change you get per stage 6. So here with the baseline, I'm tweaking it utilizing 22, 2.0, and 3.3. Now, the thing about this car is, yes, you can put the final drive higher, okay, but notice it lowers the evo points. Even if you go with a more aggressive tire and try to push for something along the lines of a higher final drive, you generally don't see as high a evo point as if you just left it with 2.0 and tweaking the tire. This will also come into play when we tweak later on for each of the stage 6s, but starting off, let's use 9.982 as the baseline, and let's start looking at the individual stage 6s. A 9-second stage 5 only baseline, 9.9 second baseline, is kind of middle of the pack when it comes to a stage 5 only start. And a lot of times where you start at stage 5 only doesn't tell you exactly what stage 6 fully built is going to be like. So engine here gives us a little bit of a evo jump. That's always a good sign. That means engine is going to do something, but it's not a huge jump, so it's not going to be 5/10 or anything, but it will be something other than a few hundredth or maybe even less than a tenth. So at least it's looking like engine has somewhat of a decent impact here. Oh, yeah, so getting more grip going, and I am able to get it to what looks like 1483. 1483, that'll be a 9.725. Let's run the car. One of the things about any car in this game is that the best cars are always the ones that will automatically allow you to run under dynos through shift pattern or some other way, through tuning or shift pattern, with the shift pattern dyno beaters being the better of the two. And the other thing is that you always want a car that can achieve very high evo points at relatively low performance points. Those cars are also extremely viable in live. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, the Dodge Demon is neither. Okay, I want to like this car, but I have a hard time hitting dyno with it. And notice it's already a 702 with one stage 6 as far as performance points. And by lowering upgrades with this car, this goes down even more and very rapidly. So it's not a low performance point high evo car. That makes this car less viable in most live competition, unless you're talking about showdown, in which case a fully maxed version of this car is all you're going to be using. Then it's less relevant as far as the pre-maxed status. But engine gives us about a 2/10 drop, little over 2/10 actually, from 9.9 all the way to 9.7. Notice even without engine at stage 5 only, that's a pretty high performance point. That doesn't go well with matchmaking, because you're matchmaking against other cars that may only be running 660 or so performance points at a 1800 evo. they will have a better advantage against you as far as pure matchmaking is concerned. We'll talk about that in another video, but the current strength in matchmaking goes with the low performance point, high evo cars, and if it beats dyno a little from there, it's really good. Okay, 9.802 is definitely not as good as engine, but that's expected. Again, we can tweak tire to see if there's more in there somewhere. Probably not. Right? 9.802 is what we'll stake with, and let's jump to the next one. Now, we're looking at possibly the two weakest stage 6s here right now, because with T5 cars, turbo and intake rarely comes out to be the higher and more effective stage 6s. Not to say there are none, but I would say 90% of the cars, these two will be near the bottom as far as effects. Actually, intake looked like it had a bigger jump than turbo, so it's likely going to beat turbo, but I've been surprised many a times where intake looked like it was going to do better and it did worse. So let's see what intake comes out to be. Before we fine tune it, ooh, very close, 9.839, but still not quite as good as turbo, right? So fine tuning says I get 1 evo point out of it, 9.836. Intake still came out a little bit slower than turbo. So right now it's at the bottom. We haven't seen anything really good yet. These are all relatively small jumps in time. So let's hope that starting with Nitrous, we see some good ones from here on out. Nitrous should have a decent jump, and it does, and it's not even tuned yet. Once I tweak the duration, probably even more so. So that looks like a decent stage 6. Not all T5 cars recently, especially the newer ones, they really haven't been relying as heavily on Nitrous. But this one looks like it really likes Nitrous. Let's get it to... Ooh, I think I saw 53 there. And then let's see if we can get to 54. Yes, we can. So 1554 is a 9.5. That's a decent drop from 9.9, right? A decent 0.4 drop and change. Let's run this with Nitrous because this is a much longer duration. Actually, you know what? Let me play with that duration. No, let's leave the duration. Let's run it. So this is a much longer duration, which means let's see if this car will now get slightly under dyno, or at least hit dyno, or it's still the same story and it's hard to get that. Again, I haven't researched the shift pattern in this, so I could be shifting it slightly wrong. I'm sure my viewers will let me know if I'm doing it wrong, but let's see. Now, that wasn't the best overall run anyway, so let's assume we're going to do a little worse than dyno here, because I think I missed a little bit on that second shift to third. Yeah, that's not so good. That's basically almost a tenth slower because of the way I drove it. Let's give it one more run, but I'm not going to make you watch me run this over and over again. We'll jump to the next stage 6 after this. But again, Nitrous probably is going to have an impact on how this car ultimately gets tuned and set up once it's closer to max. So I'm trying to go for deep good shifts instead of perfect, so I don't bounce the needle, and keeping my fingers crossed that it's not as bad as the last run. Oh, it's better, but not by much. So again, I'm not getting under dyno easily, and that is a negative point. Anytime I review a car, I'd look for the ease in which it can outrun dyno, and this car unfortunately so far does not, and it doesn't look like the strongest stage 6 so far has that much of an impact on the ability to get under dyno, which with some cars it is the case. Ooh, this looks like another decently strong stage 6. Body typically is pretty good for tier 5 cars. In fact, many tier 5s have body as its top stage 6, but in this case it may or may not get past Nitrous. I kind of doubt it will, but we'll see in a second. Okay, so it looks like 22. Again, I'm not really tweaking this because it seems to go down anytime you change that. 9.575. That is so close to Nitrous. I already forgot what Nitrous's dyno was. I think it's 9.5594. It might be that. So I'm going to go back later and look at it, but that would put body just a hair ahead of Nitrous. Therefore, worth at least a run to see what it can do. Maybe there's hope with body that I can get it under dyno. Let's see. Right, so first gear is pretty quick on this card, and I know that you're probably better off short shifting it than letting it run to red line, so that's what I've been doing. But again, you know, it's probably not an optimal way to drive it. Ooh, that's pretty bad. Wow. Okay, I screwed up somewhere. Test run that with the body, see what you can get, but obviously, again, this is a car I struggle with, which is part of the reason I never got into it that much, because when I test drove it with partial upgrades, I found the same thing. I have a difficult time to even hit dyno with it. Okay, so that was body. Now, body likely did beat dyno, but maybe it didn't. But those two are 1 and 2 right now, without a doubt. And it doesn't look like tire's going to come anywhere close to, well, tire may actually come closer to engine than anything, but it's not going to come anywhere near what Nitrous and body just did. So let's take a look at tire tuning here. Obviously, it should go up if I lower grip because I have higher level tires, but it's not a huge change. And 9.779. 9.779 seems very close to engine, but I think again, I think it beats engine by a hair. So I'll look at the numbers again before we make the final list, but tire, engine looks like they're on par. Nitrous and body very close. That's good and bad, because anytime you have two stage 6s that actually are very close to each other in overall performance, it's not a terrible thing, because you're not just relying on that one miracle worker stage 6 to do everything. You can now still do okay with either Nitrous or body plus something, right? But again, we don't have any challenges recently that requires this car. For purpose of showdown, you're going to want fully maxed. All right, transmission. Let's take a look. The numbers look like it did a decent, well, no, that's kind of low. Let's hope that some tuning can help here. Can it go up more? Wow, looks like about 27 is all I'm going to get. But it did well. 9.631 is almost as good as Nitrous and body. So this is not a bad stage 6. Even though that didn't go up much, this went up quite a lot, and it still came out to be a decent performing stage 6. But that's a negative when it comes to adding parts as you try to set up a car for live, because high performance point without much evo change is a negative when it comes to matchmaking. It's not good for matchmaking purposes. So far what I can tell about this car is that it's not going to carry low performance point high evo no matter what. That means no matter what combination of stage 6s you try to use, it's going to come out with really high performance point and decent evo, but not enough to make the car super competitive on pure matchmaking grounds. Can you tune it to a lobby edge and make it a winnable car? Probably. Are you going to get beat by some cars? Definitely. There are going to be a bunch of cars that are going to do better than this car, for sure. So what I just did is I put in the 3 top stage 6s, and we're going to compare results with the 4 bottom ones. And 3 top ones get you into 8.7. Okay, let's run it again. Let's see if I can somehow get that dyno or get under it. Again, I'm not too positive my driving's correct, but I have not even come close to getting even dyno, much less beating it. Okay, so I'm doing the best I can here from a driving standpoint, keeping my fingers crossed that it'll come close to that 8.7, 8.8. I guess that's not bad, right? 8.798, that was only about 400 off, but again, 400 off slower, not 400 off faster than dyno. And that at such a high point, again, this is not going to be super competitive in live at all. Showdown doesn't care about this, so this isn't a relevant discussion when it comes to Showdown. That's trophy based. You just want your car as fast as possible for a given trophy point. Okay, so top 3 tested. Let's go with bottom 4, and then we can kind of wrap it up. I can tell you that I can take the car into live and try to run it, but it probably won't be that pretty. Part of the thing is, if you ever go to a live lobby, you always want to look at the cars that are in there. And the ones that people tend to run over and over and over and take up half the lobby with that type of car generally means it's good for some reason. Whether it's just competitive, whether it's a great swapper, you'll see that. Notice there's about a almost 5/10 difference between the 4 slower and the 3 faster stage 6s. So that's the gap right there, about almost, not quite, but almost half a second gap between the two. Okay, so we're going to run this one, and then let's go ahead and take the car into live, at least for a shot, and then we'll kind of wrap it up from there. All right. Here we go. Now, I do want to say maybe I should put this car to fully maxed for that live demonstration, because it happens to be right near a lobby cutoff. So again, I also bounced a red line at the end there, so that's a pretty bad run. Still slower than dyno, pretty high on upgrades, but I'm not quite getting right to where I need to be. Okay, now, what about fully maxed? Is it fully maxed a little more viable overall? Yes and no. So what happens is, fully maxed, this car essentially dynos and runs right in the 7.9 range. Okay, I think it dynos a little bit slower, but let me see. Let me go ahead and put that to the dyno that I've seen for the best run, and you have 7.971, but that's about what you're going to run too, even with a great run. You're more likely to probably hit something like an 8.0 than a 7.9. Depends on where you get put initially in live. If you're in the 8.2 lobby, that is still viable, but once you bump to the 7 second, sub 7 second lobby, it won't be as viable after that. Ooh, I totally botched that one. Okay, so it won't be a 7.9 for sure. It's 8.0 something. That, again, is something that bothers me, because if I'm struggling to hit the time, it's going to happen again also in live. All right, so let's take it in live. Let's just see where it lobbies us, and that'll kind of also give you an idea of how this car is when you finally get it to a live racing situation. Now, this is fully maxed, so based on the 7.9 dyno, you should be in a lobby between 7.7 to 7.9 cars. But as you can see in here, no one is using a Demon, right? That's always a sign that maybe you're not in a great lobby for this car. If this car was going to do great here, somebody else should be using it in here. And that's just not the case. You see, nobody in here has the Demon. And that's probably because there are just better choices in this lobby range at this point for live racing. Let me jump in and out and see if the lobby changes. Maybe I'll find some different racers that does have my car, and I can race one. So again, when you get to this point, you're starting to see a lot of options out there that might be better. And most of these guys are actually much quicker than 7.9 runs. I mean, all these cars are capable of 6.9 runs. Even the Supra is capable of at least 7.2, and that is why this is not the greatest lobby to be in. This car is probably one of the slower ones in this lobby, and even he's probably, well, he's not running swaps. All right, the other thing is, I'm just going to challenge somebody, I think, at this point. The other thing is, depending on how much the matchmaking pushed me based on the fact my car's maxed, I may actually be facing 7.7 and faster cars, which would suck, but that's just the current matchmaking adjustments. I should still be competitive at least in the, oh boy, I'm not going to be competitive with the 0 RPM drop though, so I definitely lost that one. Look how far he's ahead of me though. That's really out. So I'm actually in a lobby with a car that is doing 7.7, right? So I'm in the 7.7 to 7.9 range lobby on my 7.9 dyno. You can't win with that. It's not very viable. The thing about dropping parts to make it viable is that this car drops not that many performance points, but it loses a ton of evo. So it's not going to get a part drop setup that's going to be greatly viable either until you go negative. And you can go negative to get a dyno buster, but then the car doesn't make any RP, so it's not really all that interesting in that sense either. This is why it's not one of my go-to cars for anything at this point, because I realized this one is not all that great. Okay, so can you get the car to beat dyno through a dyno bus tune? Yes, you can. Right there, you can see that big drop. Is it gonna really be worth it? Probably not with that. I mean, with that level of, evo points, it's just not really worth driving it. So I'm trying to find the cliff drop here, and there it is. Okay, so even at max evo, you're only looking at 11.9 with measly 650 evo, and if you somehow get the evo drop to give you that dyno buster right there, you're now at 12.6 doing 11.9 to 12.0, which is great, but it's not going to really be that great on giving you any rewards on evo. So yes, you can use this to maybe bet a few guys that are in the slower lobbies, get a little money, but it's kind of miserable outside of that. Okay, I didn't get the launch just right there. Maybe I should redo it, but probably will still at least run dyno or a little under. All right. So with a 0 RPM drop, which isn't pushing the car as hard, it still did a 12.5, which on a 12.6 dyno. But let me go ahead and do this right and give you a actual dyno busting run, and then we can call it from there. The problem with this kind of a dyno busting is, again, one, you're not making RP. Two, you're going to get bumped by the system very quickly once it realizes what you're doing. And the current matchmaking system is pretty keen on finding out if you're busting dyno, and it will punish you for it. Okay, so by launching late on a wheel spin, I can duplicate the dyno busting run right there. So again, 272 evo, 12.6, did a 12.2. But from a matchmaking standpoint, I may matchmake against a car that runs, that dynos 0.2 better than I do and runs another 0.2 better than I do, forcing me to run 0.4 under to be competitive, and then quickly pushing me out of the live lobby where it's competitive into something where it's not. So even with this dyno busting tune, you're facing cars in the class like this one will have very low performance point, might even be like 640 something to be in here, and still be relatively competitive. Certainly you can fight cars like this that also doesn't really beat dyno, but let's say if you take on a car that is possibly breaking dyno, you're probably going to lose. All right, I'm just going to take one race and kind of just show what it can do, and then we'll go from there. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to slow down if I'm way ahead, but let's see if I don't get a 0 RPM drop first. Okay, so I'm going to run out on the guy and be way ahead here, but I'm going to bounce the needle and then I'm going to slow down and let him catch up, making it a close run. So I can win like this. I can use this to kind of somewhat control the winds. As you can see, I mean, he might not even be running all out. He has a win-loss on here. 545. That's, I mean, I can make that with an A-Barth. Okay, you can drive an A-Barth with 500 Evo, win all the time, and get 500 RP per race. The only benefit here is you get more money if you win, but you're also facing other cars that could be dyno busting just as much as you are, if not more. And then it becomes, you know, a contest of who's going to bust more and then get pushed further out of the lobby. Again, not really a worthwhile endeavor. Since he challenged me, I'm going to go ahead and race him. Again, I'm charging way ahead here. I know that car's probably already topped out. I'm going to slow down, let him have it, because I'm not here to just, you know, beat these guys by using this technique, because quite frankly, anything under 1,000 Evo, I don't run it. I don't consider it worthwhile. But can you get some money? Can you get some RP? Yes. Considering how much effort you already put in to get the car to this point, you really shouldn't even bother to come here with it. Again, this is the downside to the Dodge Demon. I haven't found other ways to make it extremely worthwhile in live. So if you know some technique and you want to share, be my guest. If you don't want to share and it's your special tune, I totally understand. Not everybody likes sharing all their little secrets or little tidbits they discover in game, and that's perfectly fine. So that is the stage 6 effects of the Dodge SRT Demon, with a little bit of discussion on its strengths and weaknesses I've observed in live. If you have any other ideas or thoughts about this car, feel free to share them in the comments. If you like the video, please leave a like, and if you like my channel, please subscribe so you can get notifications when I put up new videos. And thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.